So I'm Lars Thuesen from Denmark. When I initiated the Positive Deviance approach in the Danish Prison and Probation Service, I was the innovation director, and we were facing a lot of problems from the politicians, from the unions, facing a bad working environment, high numbers of absenteeism among staff. So we needed to do something seriously about it. And our problem definition in the central office was a managerial agenda. So we did a lot of things and tried a lot of things, but it didn't really work. We couldn't really solve the problems. And then I got acquainted with the Positive Deviance approach. And then I thought, well, maybe we could try that, because we have tried a lot of other things that didn't work. So what we actually were looking for, and we engaged in an inquiry process with the guards, later on with the inmates, showed to be very, very useful. I will tell you a very brief story. When we talked with the guards, we found out that there were some guards that actually behaved differently from the others. There was one female guard who, when you, as an inmate, when you need to get out of your cell, you need to press a bell. And the bell is usually ringing in the guards room. And the common behavior would be that it would be kind of an interruption, because they would be in the middle of doing something else, some casework, eating together, chatting together, drinking coffee. But this female guard, she thought, well, the bell is ringing, so I better get up quickly. So she got up, and she was doing a little bit of noise with the keys when she entered the hall and went down to the cell. She was actually knocking the door, and she was waiting a little bit. She was opening the door slowly, and then she asked, well, what can I do for you? So when we talked with the inmates about that, they said this is a totally different way of connecting in a very gentle, human way. So they said, well, I would actually like to talk more with her. What was really interesting when we got to know her and talked with her was that, of course, this is a very simple, banal behavior. But what happened was that we found out that she also experienced less threats and violence than the other guards. So she was deviant in that way, positively. She didn't experience so many situations where you fixate people and use constraints. And she was happy at work. She came to work. She was not so absent. So in that way, she was having a good working life, meaningful working life, and the inmates thought so too. So the inmates engaged with her. They wanted to talk with her. They wanted to talk about competence development, training, and so on. So it was also a re-socialization process for the inmates. So you could say this female guard, she was, of course, successful in her own way, but she was also solving the problem of the central office with the absenteeism, bad working environment, etc. So once we found her, we tried to get her to tell her story. That was a little bit difficult because she didn't want to stand up and talk about it. But we helped with that and facilitated a process with that. And so the others, just like her, the peers, the other guards, could actually learn from it. It took a lot of time to build trust in the system, because people are not used to talking about serious matters. It's a little bit of a macho culture. So in the beginning, just to get the guards to talk together was a challenge. But we used a lot of time and effort in doing that. After a while, we included, or they decided to include, the inmates, because they found out that a lot of this has actually to do with the relationship between the inmates and the guards. So they got to be part of the conversation, part of the inquiry process, and so on. So it was really turning from an HR problem to a community problem-solving process, you could say.